Hi everyone, so I'm Johnny Mathers and hopefully by now you know me as Bald Sasquatch. It's the Thursday night after everything's been released online. It's been a crazy evening and I just want to say thank you once again to Sony and Santa Monica for allowing us to do this project. The feedback's been absolutely overwhelming, and I'm so proud of what we've achieved, and I'm really glad now everyone's got to see all of our hard work and what we've been up to for the last couple of months in secret. It's just fantastic. But a couple of things have come up, and I kind of want to address them now. And I'm doing it now because this is how I'm going to do things in the future. So a couple of people have said, Johnny, what are you doing? That's not you on the video. You seem so stale and stuck up. And it's like, no, you're right, it ain't me. I don't work like that. I've never done this before. I've never done content videos before. I tried to do what I thought was right by looking at what other people do. That's not me. I don't work like that. I never work like that. I come from a generation of crazy 90s filmmakers, and it's all a bit quirky and weird. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I know. I'm going to be quirky and weird. I'm going to film things on the fly. So you're going to start to see my videos be a little bit more crazy maybe looking, and that's just because that's the way I work, and it's the best way for me to express myself. So I'm going to really quickly re-record everything I've already done to get away from that kind of static sat behind a desk thing, which just doesn't suit me. The second thing I want to really get through is this. Cosplay is for everybody. Anybody can do it. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your skill set, doesn't matter your body type, size, your gender, your sexual orientation, none of that matters. What matters is you're trying to represent a character or a being or a robot or whatever it is that you really relate with or connect with, or you just really want to pay homage to, okay? And that's totally fine. Doesn't matter what you look like. Doesn't matter what people say about you. I've had loads of comments on social media from the first time round we did a Kratos and Atreus. I just ignore it. Just let it fly over your head. Do it for you. Do it because you enjoy it. Have fun with it. Plenty of people out there will give you lots of constructive advice on what you might be able to do better next time, and take that on board, because there's lots of people out there with lots of skills and experience and knowledge, and that's all really useful. And every day is a learning curve, try something new, but don't take anything to heart. Don't let anyone get to you. Just let it all fly by, okay? Cosplay is for everyone, and I will say that over and over again. Okay, but right now, all I need you to know is that I'm really, really pleased that you've all got to see the hard work we've done. So, thinking about that, and the way I'm going to behave from now on, there's only one thing left to do. Are you ready? This is making Kratos. Okay, so also, you're going to see lots of parts of my house, because when I make cosplay, I haven't got enough space in my little area to do it all, so I use the whole house. So you might see the kitchen, the outside, the front garden, the lounge, and you might even see these guys. These are the mini giants, and they take up a lot of space as well. So today we're going to talk about materials, but right now I'm in London. I know, this looks lazy and I'm lying in bed. Not my bed, hotel bed, because I'm in London. And it's been a crazy couple of days. Anyway, so, materials. The first thing I started to do was the trousers. Now, I got the material from these from a local place that me and Abby go to for material. Here's a little photograph of how excited she was when we found the right one. So what we're looking at here is the material of the legs. And it's kind of like a woolly type tweed. And I'm not really quite sure what it was meant to be, but what we found we thought was quite similar. And it was quite a light material, but it was heavy looking and had that woven feel to it, which we thought was quite good, so that's why we picked it. So this stuff is pretty nice. It's got a nice texture, almost the right colour. Had to do a little bit of adjusting though. So some green cold water dye, some salt, and then I added to that some brown cold water dye as well, and you just mix this up and basically just soak the cloth in there for about an hour or two. And that does the trick. So once the material was dyed and dried, which doesn't take really long, like I said, a couple of hours in the dye bath, pull it out, dry it off. Then I could start sorting out my pattern. Now I used a pair of my own shorts for this because of my size. You can't really buy patterns for people of my size very easily. And I knew the shorts I was using were the most comfortable ones I have. And I wanted to make sure the Kratos trousers were quite comfortable. And they don't have much form to them. They're not like particularly styled. They're just very plain looking sort of like trousers. So I used the shorts to make a pattern, keeping in mind of some extra along the edges for sewing loss, and also thinking about a bit extra for the seat of the pants. So I kind of followed each panel of the trousers, and then it was a real simple process of just sewing those panels together in order. Now don't get me wrong, I made a mistake. I thought I was doing really, really well. I mean, I'm alright with a sewing machine, even though I don't look comfortable sat in front of one, but I thought I'd done really well, and then I realised that I'd sewed the legs into one long waistband and the waistband into two tiny legs, which was a nightmare, and I had to pick and stitch it and take it apart and then restart again. But once I'd sewn all the panels together, which was just a basic single stitch line to make the seam, and then I went over the edges of the fabric with a cross stitch machine just to stop the fraying and give them some more strength. I left the trousers unfinished, and just to make the waist, I just doubled over the top of the waistband by about 1.5 inches. I sewed it all the way around, leaving 2 holes either side so I could thread some elastic through the waistband to pull it tight. From the sort of like the groin of the trousers up to the top of the waistband is quite large, but I was to go up my stomach as far as possible to give me an extra layer for when I was putting on the torso armour, because previously on the old cosplay I'd made with Abby, that torso armour rubbed quite a lot against my sides and made it really uncomfortable to walk around. Didn't want that to happen again. It just gives me a bit of an extra barrier. It also means that they can sort of, be behind all the armour and everything else, so there's no gaps poking through of anything, And that was it, really. There wasn't much to them. They worked really well, and I think they look pretty good. I didn't go over the top with any sort of like washing or distressing them too much, because that's why I used the green dye to sort of highlight a bit more green in the trousers, because they look a little bit mottled on the reference images we have. But yeah, it was a pretty straightforward process for them. But the next bit was the boot coverings. So the boot coverings look like a really heavy wool, but making them out of a really heavy wool just didn't seem feasible. So I started looking for other materials, and what I found really interestingly was washing cloths for cars. Now this is a really heavy cotton, sort of like a dishcloth. It comes in quite a long piece, which is like knitted tubular in sort of shape. So you can basically use that and put that on and double it over, almost like a bandage. And that literally made the boot coverings. All I did was to do the dye process again. So I used the same batch of dye I'd used for the trousers, dipped in the cotton cloth in, and then basically let that dry out. Once I was happy with that dried and the colour it was, I then basically doubled them over, and at the bottom I attached a small press stud, which then goes onto the top of the shoes, which are the bottom half of the boots. I'm guessing that the boots are probably longer in form underneath, but there was no reference to sort of go by, so I kind of just went with the fact that they were more of a shoe with a covering over the top. And then the binding around the cloth sections is just some of this PU leather, the fake leather. It's about 1 inch wide strip. I sewed some lengths together. I mean, for my legs it was like nearly 2 meters long, so it can go around the leg and crisscross, and just has some Velcro at the top of the actual roll, just so when you get to the top you can Velcro it together and it holds the cloth bandaging in place around the top of the boots. And it was as simple as that. It didn't have to be any more complicated. I just wanted it to be straightforward. It looks very close to the reference images. I was really happy with it and the way it turned out. I dirtied them up though the same way I dirtied up the shoes. So it was a lot of white paint and grey paint speckled in, and then a little bit of a sort of splash of a brown wash. You can't really tell, but it is on there. It definitely showed up better on the shoes. But that was it for that part anyway. It suddenly got really warm here. I'm dripping. This is another thing that I deal with a lot, is I sweat quite a lot, and I'll mention that on another video about the makeup situation. But so with the Spartan skirt, which is the remnant of the Spartan skirt pieces that Kratos has around his belt, I kind of went previously on the idea that was leather. The references we've seen before and things I'd seen about those kind of items was they're all made out of leather. The references though we had for Ragnarok didn't seem that way. It looked like more of a suede, or maybe even kind of a velvet kind of thing. So I tried to find something that looked like suede or velvet that wasn't suede or velvet, thinking about, you know, it was getting very heavy on the leather kind of things I was buying. And I wanted something to contrast against the leather. So I went for a material which is actually plastic in orientation. I think it's made out of nylon. And basically this stuff is like, almost feels like a fur on one side. It looks quite soft to the touch. It's not, it feels a little bit more like rubbing your hand across Velcro. And basically I cut this into lengths. And I fold it into 3, so fold it over and then fold it in on itself. Run them up the sewing machine, dead simple, with a single stitch down each of the sides, about 4 or 5 mil from the edges, just to give it those groove marks that you can see in the reference images, and then folded them over and stitched them so they attached to a webbing belt that I had, so I could tie it around my waist and clip it into place underneath the armour. The ends of all of these I finished different ways because they're all slightly different. Some are still straight cut, some are ragged, some have got the metal coin on the end, some haven't. So I basically made them all a bit random. If you want to really rough them up, I can suggest you do this way. That's it. Go on. Go on. Rip it up. Ah, come on. That's it. Yeah, go. Better. Come on. Come on. I'm kidding. I didn't actually use that one. I might have used it. Who knows? If you want to do that, crack on. I just thought it was funny to do it. I did a lot of the sort of like dirtying up on them with black acrylic. Just a black acrylic wash. Nothing too over the top. You could airbrush them if you wanted to, but I just thought it was just enough to give them that definition against the red and not make them look quite so bright. But then after seeing the photographs of the shoot, I kind of thought that it didn't look quite right. So I'm going to go back and probably do that over. Just going to say this now. There's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely fine. If you make something and then later on you think, it doesn't quite look right, I need to do that again, or I need to improve it, go back, improve your cosplay. That's all part of the game. And I think that's really valid. You've gone, it's not quite right, I need to change it. Go back and do it. That's cool. But yeah, so they were just finished. Tied them off onto a webbing belt with a bit of a stitch. Nothing too majorly complicated there either. I think it's just understanding that all these layers have all got to be put together. So these sit under the torso armour, which I'll go into on another episode. And that about wraps it up. So thanks for joining me again for making Kratos. I know this video's looked a little bit jutty and all over the spot, but I just couldn't film another one the same way. It didn't feel like me, and I'm a little bit more fly by the seat of my pants kind of scenario where I'm just doing things off the cuff. So that's what you've got, is an off the cuff video. I hope it's worked for you. It definitely worked better for me. Next episode will be dropping next Monday. We're going to start getting into some of the leatherwork stuff, and we're going to be looking at the central section of Kratos' costume, which is the torso armor and the belt. Some different techniques there that I've used before and some new stuff. So join me for that. I hope you have all. Sorry, I'm terrible at it. I told you I'm terrible at it. Hope you all have a good week. Catch you all soon. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget, click like and subscribe.